All right. We are live, and I think we are good to get started. I see Red Dragon and Naked Snake in the chat. What's going on, folks? Good evening. Let's get everything loaded up and jump back into quote-unquote art. All right, let's turn the BGM on. We'll be running through the BGM playlist, same as last time. Snake says, how's it going? Oh, it's going good. It was somewhat busy work day today. First day back after the holidays. That's always fun. How about the rest of yous? Snake says, right now I'm trying to think if I want to DM a cyberpunk like a D&D game? Or like a role-playing game? That could be interesting. Would it be using like standard D&D mechanics just set in a futuristic cyberpunk world? Cyberpunk Red. Tabletop game like D&D, but set in the future and stuff like that. Oh, interesting. I didn't even know there was like a cyberpunk role-playing game. There's cars. Hacking, net running. Oh, that's cool. I haven't gotten into the cyberpunk franchise yet. I kind of want to play 2077 at some point. Apparently it's pretty decent now, and they got the DLC coming out like within like the year maybe. I'm just glad I didn't pick that game up on launch. Alright, so what are we doing? If you remember, a couple weeks ago when we did the last drawing stream, we did something I was experimenting around with here on Twitch with taking old art and trying to redraw old art so that it's less terrible. And so let me zoom out here. I'll show you folks what we were working on before. What we did last time is I pulled up an old scan. The reason why the contrast looks all weird is because this is a pencil and paper sketch over here on the left of an old female character from a whole concept sheet. And the point was to redraw the character and update the design and improve things and overall see if we can make it better. And so what we ended up doing was revamping parts of the armor and the outfit and changing the pose up slightly, and that's how we got the one here on the right. Snake says, also right now I've been going through Devil May Cry 3 for the first time. Just beat the boss Agni and Rudra. I like how funny they are. You're in for quite the experience, my friend. Devil May Cry 3 is one of my favorite games. It is hard. If you got through Agni and Rudra, you'll probably be alright. I played that game way back in the day when it came out, and it's really fun. It's probably my favorite Devil May Cry because I haven't played all the way through 5 yet. But I really liked that game. It's difficult and pretty over the top, but if you can get all the way to the end, it's pretty fun. Especially if you're playing the Ultimate HD edition they released recently. If you're playing the original, then it doesn't have some of the quality of life stuff they added. Like, they added a continue ability, like a better continue ability, and they made it better. If you're playing the original PS2 version, that is even more impressive because that's difficult. Hey, Sour Lad, what's up? How you doing? Snake says, I unlocked easy mode immediately. Yeah, everybody does that. That's pretty common. The game is not merciful at all. Snake says, I've only played 5, so when I saw that they were selling the pack of 1 through 4, I had to buy it. So I haven't really talked a ton about Devil May Cry here because I tried to play through 5 and my computer said no. Hopefully we'll be able to do that in the near future once I get my graphics card installed. But of the ones I've played all the way through, I haven't played 1, 2, or 5. So it's really between 3 and 4. I liked 3. 3 is probably my favorite of the ones I played through, like I said earlier. And I thought 4 was okay. It was fine. Presentation-wise, gameplay-wise, 4 is good. What I didn't really like about 4 was the fact that you basically play through the game twice with 2 different characters. And the story was okay. But I liked Nero, and the game looked really good and played fine. It didn't really grab me as well as 3. But 4 is fine. And I haven't played 1, and I hear 2 is pretty bad. So I probably wouldn't go back and play 2 unless I really want to know what it was like or just watch someone play it. And then 5 is apparently one of the best of all of them. So I'm looking forward to playing through that one. As far as character action goes, that's a pretty high bar that's been set. Okay. So what we've done... Oops, I'll hide that one. What we've done is we resketched out a realized version of the character with all the changes. Again, it's the one on the right here. What I'd like to do before we go in and start inking and coloring is I kind of want to create an alt outfit design like we've done before. In fact, we can hide the original and give ourselves more room. Because I think it'd be cool to do some alternate costumes for this character. Maybe not all at once. I want to get through at least a colored and shaded version of this today and actually finish this. But if we kind of concept out some ideas for an alternate outfit, then like we've done with some of the other designs, is then we'll have other options as far as like what the character's wearing and whatnot. So let me see if I can size this properly. Then I can use the sketch to rough out another outfit and, you know, not have to redraw the whole thing from scratch. Snake says, I haven't played through story of Devil May Cry 4. I've just been messing around with Virgil because he's such a fun character in that game. I know I unlocked Virgil at the end of Devil May Cry 3. And thanks to playing a little bit of Devil May Cry 3, I finally understand the term pizza goblin because Jesus Christ, cutscene Dante is crazy. Yeah, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong since you're playing through it, canonically, Devil May Cry 3 is a prequel to 1 and 2. So it was Dante before he became like a pro demon hunter. And so he's kind of like wild, crazy party guy Dante, which is the most memorable. Because he's kind of serious and edgelordy in 1, and no one really talks about 2. But in 3, he's kind of like, woohoo, let's party, wild and crazy Dante. He surfs on an enemy in the first cutscene. Snake says, yeah, so Devil May Cry 3, like Snake Eater of the Devil May Cry series. Yeah, I guess so, because 4 takes place canonically after 2. 2's the progression, and then 5 takes place after 4. The real question, Snake, if you're getting into like the character action classics, the real question to ask is, are you going to play DMC Devil May Cry? Because that game, I've never played that game, but I watched the Super Best Friends play through it way back in the day, and that one seemed like a real experience. Alright, we need to get a slightly darker sketch pencil here. what we'll do is we'll rough in just where the face is, and we'll worry about putting in the details like the hair and whatnot, since it's just going to be copy pasted from the first one. What we really care about here is getting the details on the outfit. Snake says DMC Devil May Cry was such a bad idea. They wanted to reboot the series and have someone else do it. It just wasn't executed very well. Like, mechanically that game apparently was fine. The gameplay was okay, but the characters and story were just not as compelling. Like, they kind of re-rolled the whole mythos of Sparta and his sons, and the redesign for Dante obviously was very poorly received. A lot of people call him Dante. It was an ambitious try at rebooting the series, but it was done so poorly that Capcom just said, we're gonna retcon that whole thing, and that's how we got 5. Itsuno came back and he's like, we're gonna do an actual Devil May Cry sequel. Just forget about that one. Don't worry about that. That reboot one, it didn't happen. Just don't worry about that. Snake says gameplay, visuals were fine, but having Virgil sniper pregnant women was never a good idea. Really weird way of portraying the antagonist characters too. And I haven't played the first 2 Devil May Cry, so I don't know if it character-wise was supposed to be like the main antagonistic force from the first game, or if it was completely different. But I didn't find it that interesting. I found the discussion around it really interesting. People talking about how much they disliked it. But sometimes that happens. We had to suffer through DMC Devil May Cry so we can get 5. And from what everyone has said, I guess it was pretty worth it. I've managed to avoid being spoiled on the majority of the late game stuff in 5 because I haven't watched anybody play through it super far into the game. And so I will be doing that at some point in the future once my computer can handle it. I kind of want to see all of the specific references Bayonetta 3 ripped off of Devil May Cry 5, because that has come up numerous times as far as from a gameplay perspective and whatnot. And I haven't played 5, so I don't know what those references are entirely. I will say, because I think, Snake, you said you were watching Wooly and Reggie play through Bayo 3. Watching Wooly's soul slowly erode as he played 3 was kind of sad to watch. I really enjoyed that game. It's flawed, and the story's kind of whack, but everything else about the game and the way it's designed isn't bad. It's like every other Bayo game where it's fun to play, but it has issues. It's just not every game has the same issues. And I think Kamiya had confirmed on Twitter somewhat recently that they're going to be making a 4th one. So we'll see if they end up retconning or addressing some of the story-related stuff in Bayo 3. I'm not going to talk about specifics for spoiler purposes, but all you really need to know is that people weren't too thrilled with what they did with the story. And I agree. That was probably the biggest weakness of the game. Snake says, I don't have a problem with Viola. I just hope they give her the DMC5 treatment like they did with Nero. Yeah, that was the real problem. Again, without getting into specific spoilers, the problem wasn't that they introduced Viola as a new character. The problem was if their intent was to kind of do like a Devil May Cry style baton pass of who's going to be, or torch pass of who's going to be kind of carrying forward in the franchise, they should have given her more time and more depth as a character and his gameplay. I've heard a lot of good ideas, like in the Bayo 3 spoiler cast that the Super Beast dudes did, about how they could have fixed the ending so that it fit more in line with what they were trying to do. I just don't think it was executed well enough that it really made sense and paid off. But I don't know. It's apparently clear that we're going to be getting another one. Hopefully not in 7 years or however long it took. 8 years between Bayo 2 and 3. I know we've got the adventure style prequel game coming out, and that'll obviously come out before, but hopefully we'll get 4 and see where it goes. Snake says, I just hope the story is alright for that Cereza game. Yeah, the prequel one. Well, I guess we'll see if the narrative problems are addressed at all when that one comes out. Because it takes place in the past. So I guess we'll see if it ties in at all, or it has nothing to do with the events that happened in 3, since it takes place in the past. We don't know. We'll just have to see what Platinum's writing team does. Snake says, it's not really a spoiler, but I do like how you fight at Platinum. Yeah, at the building where their office is located. That's a pretty cool touch. If I ever go to Japan, I definitely, if I'm in the area, want to see the building where the Platinum offices are, just to be able to say, I was physically near where all those folks work. Maybe I could tweet it at Kamiya and get blocked. Alright, so while we're talking about character action games, what I'm doing is I'm experimenting around with some ideas and variations on armor for this character. And so I'm working off of the original, trying not to duplicate just the same design, but we're looking for like a protective plate-like armor. So you don't want to do like stereotypical boob armor. I want this to be kind of functional, so it's not going to be like form-fitting. Snake says, I really do feel like they were being pushed to make Bayonetta 3 for the holidays. Yeah, I guess, I don't know if they were under pressure from Nintendo to get the game out because it had been so long, but I think if it meant Platinum would have waited longer to announce it to give themselves more time to actually play through and develop, or like work through and develop Bayo 3 more, it would have been fine. They could have just waited like 6 months to a year to announce it and then have it come out later to make a better product. Because apparently they wanted to do open world and it was scrapped when they made some design decisions. If you haven't seen Matt McMuscles of the former Super Best Friends, he did a What Happened on Bayo 3 talking about the development. And apparently the reason why some of the areas in Bayo 3 are so open and kind of empty is because it was supposed to be like an open world game, and then they scrapped it and they went back to a linear level based style, and that's very clearly what happened. Edward says boob armor ? What's up, Edward? Welcome to the stream. And you folks all know what I'm talking about when I say boob armor. Oh, I have it hidden. If we pull up the old sketch layer, this is kind of boob armor. From the design, it's not really clear if that's supposed to be like a fabric type garment with armor around it or like an armored breastplate, but if you're actually designing functional combat armor, it's generally not good to have a big cutout section in the chest that can drive a bladed weapon right into your heart. But don't tell anime designers that. Snake says, I do like that What Happened video. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Finding out that a lot of the things that affected Bayo 3 were development related make a lot of sense in retrospect. Snake says you can really see the bones of the old open world. Yeah, that especially like the desert areas and there's it just seemed like they're empty and devoid of both detail and characters or enemies. And kind of wandering around for stretches in Bayo 3 and not really doing anything. And apparently they had to make the worlds less detailed to be able to allow the game to operate at a stable frame rate too. Which basically means you have to sacrifice some sort of fidelity in the visuals, and it was the environments in that case. Snake says, also, I recently found out that there was a Nightmare Before Christmas game that's basically Devil May Cry 1. I've heard of that. I don't remember what system it was on. It was on an older system for sure. But it was designed to be like a character action game set in the Nightmare Before Christmas sort of universe. And was it gameplay and story or just gameplay from Devil May Cry that it ripped off? I don't remember who made it. I don't think it was a Capcom property. Oh, it was gameplay, but it was made by Capcom. Huh. Okay, well, you can't really get in trouble for ripping off yourself. That's interesting. Edward says, I watched a guy stream that recently. Huh. Character action genre of games is got a lot of interesting sort of twists and turns. You know, going back to the PS2 era, I think Devil May Cry really kind of defined character action with the first one. And then since then, you've had other games come up and sort of take a shot at that style of gameplay, like really quick combo-based style or weapon switching and stuff like that. One game I never played that I heard somewhat mixed things about was Dante's Inferno. That game thematically did some ambitious things, I suppose, but I never played it. I think it was 360, PS3 maybe. And you had titles like, and God of War is more or less a character action game. One of the biggest in that genre, if that's considered character action. I don't know if anybody here played the Castlevania Lords of Shadow series. Those were like Castlevania in like a character action format. I played the first one. It was alright. It didn't really feel like Castlevania was the problem. And there was a third person actual character action type Castlevania game made by Konami. PS2 era, that was Lament of Innocence. Canonically the first Castlevania game in the entire story. And that game was a little jank, but it was fine. I remember I own a copy of that game. And then I think we've talked about Curse of Darkness, which came after it on PS2. That's the one I have not played, but the characters Hector and Isaac come from that game. Those are the characters that we talked about on the character critique pilot that Pink and I did a while back. Snake says, character action games really popped off for the PS2 because I remember having PS2 and playing Ghost Rider game. There are probably a lot more character action-ish type of titles than I can think of off the top of my head. Like maybe one-offs or less known entries that are still considered in that same genre. God Hand, I don't know if God Hand is really considered a character action game. God Hand is in that a similar style, but mechanically God Hand is so unique you can't really call it like a true character action game like Devil May Cry or Bayo. It's like a fighting game brawler. And there really hasn't been anything quite like God Hand, and may never there may never be one as a true sequel or anything because of the ownership rights. Snake says, I would compare God Hand more to Yakuza than a Devil May Cry game. Yeah, sort of, except God Hand doesn't really do open area at all. It's pretty mission based. The levels are contained and very kind of streamlined. But mechanically, it'd probably be closer to something like Yakuza. Alright, let's see. Let's see what we can do on the lower legs here. I'm thinking like high greaves or lower leg armor. Similar to what we did on the first one, but different style. Snake says, I know God Hand has some very deep systems that you have to go looking for, but they're there. Yeah, that's what I tried to show off to the best of my ability when I played through it here on the channel. But in addition to just the slotting in of a custom move set on Gene and God Hand, there are a lot of hidden moves that are there from the jump at the very beginning that the game doesn't tell you about. And a lot of them are pretty functional all the way through because they're free. And the game just flat out doesn't tell you have like an axe kick that pops people up off the ground, or you have a free air juggle that immediately knocks people away. Of all the games I've played that were like one-offs that either weren't successful at the time or are considered dead IPs, God Hand would probably be the one that I'd like to see revived the most, and it's probably the least likely, just because the studio that made it doesn't exist, and technically I think Capcom owns the rights. I don't know if they just own everything that Clover did by default. Maybe so, because I think they released like a HD or remastered version of Okami. So if that's the case, they probably have the rights, but if you were to talk to the Capcom higher-ups about resurrecting God Hand, they'll probably just laugh and say they made no money on the previous one, so they're not super motivated to bring it back, I imagine. Let's experiment around with a different style of lower leg bracer than what we have over here. I'm gonna save too. Snake says, you know, Capcom, they focus on their big money makers and get rid of their small games. Well, it's not like we're going to see an Onimusha game anytime soon. Anybody here ever play an Onimusha game? Their main focus are kind of like the, I guess, three big pillars. Although, to be fair, in counterpoint to Snake's statement there, they're doing a sequel to Dragon's Dogma, and that was not like one of their biggest selling games, but definitely one of their most underrated, from what I know. And no one ever thought they were going to do that. So the fact that they're making a new Dragon's Dogma game means there might be hope for the other franchises. You just might have to wait like 10 years. But like the three big pillars of Capcom that are really their money makers would be, on the fighting game side, Street Fighter. On the not fighting game, survival horror, obviously it's Resident Evil. And then Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter in Japan would probably be their biggest money maker. But you never know. I, for one, would like to see them bring back some of their old fighting game properties. Like when we did the Fighting Collection Quick Look, Darkstalkers, Rival Schools, or any of the ones that were in that pack, like Red Earth, which I didn't try out at the time, Cyberbots. Snake says, if they ever make a God Hand 2, I will visit your grave and leave a copy on it. That's fair. I will probably be long dead before we see anything else God Hand related. Snake says, I would love to see Darkstalkers return. All the monster designs are great. Yeah, character designs are really creative and awesome in Darkstalkers. Mechanically, if they were to bring that back and modernize it, it would play a lot differently from the other 2D fighters out now. They'd have to kind of revamp it. Maybe that's why they haven't, because they can't bring it back the way it was because it'd be too clunky. So they would have to maybe make it faster or find some way to make the gameplay style and the combat more modern to keep up with like the fast-paced anime fighters like your Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue, even King of Fighters. It would have to be able to keep up with things that are a lot more fast-paced than like the old school like Street Fighter Alpha era, which was roughly around when Darkstalkers came out. On the topic of fighting games, I'm surprised NetherRealm hasn't announced whatever they're working on next. I know Boone had said around the Game Awards that they weren't ready to announce anything, which disappointed a lot of people. My guess is it's going to be Injustice. I think we would have heard something by now if it was the next Mortal Kombat. So my guess is either Injustice 3 or something new. And something new would be surprising. I would not expect that. Snake asked, by the way, have you seen the Netflix anime High Score Girl? I have not. I've not watched a lot of Netflix anime series. It's not really considered a true anime, but the last animated series I watched on Netflix would have been Castlevania a couple years ago. I don't have Netflix, so that would be why I don't watch a lot of stuff. I need access to an account. I need to watch the last season of Stranger Things, so I'm going to buy an account eventually when I get around to it. Snake says, well, if you like old fighting games and romantic comedy, I do recommend it. Okay, that's good to know. They're straight up playing Street Fighter 2 and the anime and other classic fighting games. That's a cool nod. I haven't decided if I'm gonna watch something new or spend time reading manga. I would like to read all of Chainsaw Man before they come out with the next season, now that the first season's done. I've read, like, I think a third of the manga past where the first season of Chainsaw Man ended. And so I'd like to read the rest of it and be caught up. And then I'll need something else to read or watch after that. Sarlat said, I miss Spectacular Spider-Man. Is that one of the old series? I remember the cartoon from the 90s. That's the one I probably watched the most. Yeah, the 90s animated Spider-Man's the one I'm thinking of, Snake. That was pretty good. I don't know if it's aged as well as X-Men for like comic book cartoons. I think X-Men's probably aged a little better. But Spider-Man was decent. Oh, I see. On the topic of the 90s Spider-Man, Snake says, recently walked through it for the first time. Holds up pretty well. Yeah, it would have been, I want to say, late 90s-ish. A whole bunch of Marvel cartoons were on TV around the same time. Alright, I need to remember to save. For the arms, maybe we don't have complete arm covering. Maybe we start like around here. I think I talked a little bit about this before as far as lore and the theming for this particular character and her race. In the setting for the stuff that I've written, all these character designs, this character's race has kind of a mix of like futuristic medieval inspired garments, not just armor. I tend to focus a lot on armor because it's what I like drawing, but this particular race's style of clothing is kind of like European medieval but modernized, if that makes sense. So it's like kind of futuristic plate mail-ish type of armors, and that's kind of interesting to prototype out. Snake says the one Spider-Man series where Peter Parker is chasing Shocker up a church in a black suit. I just saw that meme clip recently. I don't remember why. It was part of a compilation, I think. But you just had like evil, like dark Spider-Man yelling, yelling at Shocker as he runs up like a clock tower or something, or like a church. Don't forget, Morbius was also in the '90s Spider-Man cartoon. It was a very like different Morbius than in the movie, obviously. I think more accurate to the comics. Technically, there was Morbin time in the '90s Spider-Man cartoon. From what I remember, like he had these blood-sucking things in his hands. He didn't like bite people like a regular vampire, but he was kind of like a. He was technically a bad guy when he first showed up, and then he became like a good guy. I think he looked like a big Batman, but not that kind of Batman. I see we have save reminder and hydrate from Snake. Yes, thank you for the save reminders, folks. And for this one on the hands, maybe we could do like a metal clawed gauntlet, because they're easier to draw than regular hands. Sarlet says the Water Mary Jane meme. I think I remember that one. There was a handful of funny memes from that old '90s Spider-Man cartoon. I don't remember exactly which one the Water Mary Jane one was. If you have it, you can send it to me, Sour Lad. I'll tell you if I remember that one specifically. Snake, is Tokusatsu Spider-Man actually canon, or is that just for like a Japan-only series? Snake says the Water Mary Jane meme is the rat falling in the KFC deep fryer. It doesn't sound familiar. I think I would remember that. Snake says people are speculating that Tokusatsu Spider-Man will show up because the creators of Spider-Man love him. Huh. Well, wouldn't be the first time they've done kind of like the multiverse thing, so you never know. Okay, arm is going to have the same style of gauntlet here. Starlad said, just saw a video about the 90s Spider-Man and X-Men show. Yeah, like I remember watching the 90s X-Men show. I remember watching both when they came out, but I think I like the storytelling in the X-Men show better. It seems like it had a slightly higher budget too. Oh, okay, I see the I see the meme that you sent me, Sour Lad. This is not the one I was thinking of. Doesn't involve a deep fryer. It's a different scene. And then the immediate linked video right after that one is the him chasing Shocker scene. That's great. Must have been fun to record that one in the booth. Alright, let's finish sketching out the lower leg parts. And then we'll take a look at the other first design. Actually, maybe we'll see which one we like better. I think I still want to redraw the first one and finish that first before we do the alt, because it's most like the original. Snake says, how destroyed would the world be if you replaced Elon Musk with Hideo Kojima? Well, Kojima's not a businessman. So the idea of putting him like in charge of a company is kind of weird. I mean, at least at the level of Musk. But if Kojima's in charge, he probably wouldn't destroy Twitter. So there's that. Watching the ongoing shenanigans with good old Elon as he pile drives the Twitter platform in the ground is somewhat entertaining, I guess. Makes me glad I don't have my livelihood hinged on that platform. It kind of sucks for a lot of creatives and artists and whatnot who use Twitter to promote their work. If that platform goes under, it's going to really suck for them. Snake says, I mean, Kojima has the power of predicting the future. Yeah, we shouldn't give him access to a platform like that. He might accidentally predict the end of the world. I think he publicly apologized for predicting the pandemic. So maybe don't do any more predictions. Snake says, all the artists are going back to Tumblr. That makes sense. I was never on Tumblr, but I can see why people would be going back there. I'm surprised that platform didn't die, but the fact that it managed to still survive means maybe it'll have a resurgence if Twitter completely goes under. I mean, if Tumblr really wanted to kind of swoop in and really capitalize on the fact that Twitter's going down, they should just lift their porn ban. That would immediately boost the amount of traffic that they lost when they banned it. I don't think they will, But if they were smart, they would do that. The takeaway at the end of the day across all the different platforms is it's good to diversify your income, not put all your eggs in one basket, be it Twitch, be it YouTube, anything. You want to make sure and diversify a bit. I know the recent YouTube changes have affected a lot of creators. In fact, I was asking Wazzy if she'd seen anything with the new policy changes on profanity, and she said she hadn't seen it yet, but I know it's hit some creators. I should ask Froggy if he saw it on his channel. I haven't seen it impact any of my videos, but most of my videos are stream archives, and like my music stuff hasn't gotten affected by that, so that's good. Sarlat says ever since the purge of porn in 2018. Yeah, I don't. Again, I'm not on Tumblr at all, so I get all of my updates on that platform secondhand. But I think they allowed for like non-hardcore images of certain parts, certain bits, but not all. I don't know. Wazzy or Pink would know. Both of those two are still on Tumblr. I'm not on Tumblr at all. But I thought for sure the platform would be gone within 6 months after banning it outright. And the fact that they didn't is kind of impressive when you think about it. Snake says, hey, can I get your AOL username? You talking to me? My AOL username? I never had AOL. Hard to believe, I know. But I never had AOL as a service. The only AOL thing I used was Instant Messenger. And I'm not giving you my AOL Instant Messenger name, which I assume still works. I haven't used that program in probably a decade, but unless that's what you meant. Sorry, let's had probably too many good artists and story people holding the foundation of Tumblr. It's got to be something like that, else the platform would not have survived. There must be enough content on there that they can monetize and have keep going and create enough traffic that it's not dead. I'm just shocked it happened. That's one thing I should do. Maybe I can't think of an easy way to do it, but if I had access to some of the old websites and things that I made back in the day, that would be an interesting thing to look at, but I don't. Had a whole bunch of web pages that I made on Angel Fire because, again, I'm very old. And they were all very crude, and a lot of them had old art and stuff like that, but it's been lost to time. So the stuff that we're doing here, it's kind of the next best thing. It's not as old as when I created those web pages back in the day, but like the old art stuff we're doing goes back like maybe around a decade or so of stuff that I've made. Snake says, Wazzy is mad that they changed the character looks in the vending machine anime. Don't tell me she's gotten invested now. That's Probably not what she was expecting to happen. But that's pretty funny. I told her she should lean into the fan or the light novel reading stuff, since obviously you folks enjoy it. There's no shortage of things that she can read on probably both the good and bad spectrum of product out there. Like, she doesn't have to just read terrible things. She could read good things. But yeah, if you guys dig something that she does, then be sure to let her know. And then she can prioritize that as for content. A good example would be Mortuary Assistant. I believe Mortuary Assistant will be returning next week. I'll keep your eyes on Wazi's schedule for sure, but we were just talking about that yesterday. And unless something changes with scheduling, I believe she wants to take another swing at it, which I thought it was entertaining. Saralad says, I guess the cancer of Tumblr folk migrated to Twitter after the purge. Yeah, well, they can also just be on both, too. They don't have to be on one or the other. Twitter, in general, is a toxic cesspool of opinions. That's why I generally don't browse a lot on Twitter. I use Twitter to keep track of my friends and to keep updates out on things I'm working on. But other than that, I don't browse the trending tabs because it just bums me out every time. Like, I've mentioned that the VTuber community, well, a great community, and I've met some really cool people, has so much drama in it that I just cannot keep close tabs on it because it bums me out. Thankfully, nobody I know was involved in any drama yet, knock on wood. But it's always something. Snake says, yay, not a furry Five Nights at Freddy's. Sarlat said, Wazi was on board with the vending machine ever since she found out about it and will probably watch the anime regardless of what her therapist says. So what you're saying is, if you convince her to do something for content long enough, eventually she'll develop Stockholm Syndrome and she'll have to get invested. Good to know. Snake says, I only use Twitter to look at artists. Well, that's fair. I don't look at a ton of artists on Twitter, but usually that's where I tend to look around for commissions. In fact, I got to start doing that sometime soon for some upcoming projects. There's a lot of really talented people out there. Snake says, thank you for the idea. I'll use this for evil, I assure you. Well, you might not be able to get Wazi into Kamen Rider, but you might be able to get her into something else if you convince her to do it for content. I tried to get her into Hell of a Boss, but she didn't really dig it. And that's okay. Alright, let's take a look at what we've done. Slightly different color sketch pencil, that's okay. Interesting alternate armor design. Obviously, less of it is obscured because there's no like dress type garment here. But that has some potential. So what we'll do is we'll save, and then we will prioritize doing the line work and whatnot on design 1 first. And we'll see if we can do that in the next hour and a half. Sarlat asks, whatever happened to Has Been Hotel? Yeah, Snake's right. They're doing episodes. It's in production. I don't think it has a release date yet, but I think it's this year. Like, it's the first season. I know there was some stir online because they recast a bunch of the VAs from the pilot, which I don't think it was ever guaranteed that they were going to go with those people for the fully produced release, but that should be coming, so keep your eyes peeled. I did like Has Been Hotel. Really interesting world building. Yeah, Iconics here. Iconic says, hi Araku, sorry for being late. How goes the art? You're not late. Like I've told you folks before, all of you come and go as you please and as your schedules permit. So there's no such thing as being late. You could show up in the last 5 minutes of the stream, and that's perfectly fine. But as far as the art goes, good. I did a bit of a sidebar to do an alternate design for this character, but now we're going to go into inking and doing the line work, and we'll see how long that takes. But how's your day going, Iconic? As we get into the new year. Let me check something real quick. I don't know about you folks, but I feel like 2022 really flew by. And I blinked, and all of a sudden it was a new year. Now we're in 2023. So hopefully things keep on moving up in the new year. All right, we're good. Okay, so what I've done is I've set up a vector layer for the line art. And we'll start with the face details and then move on to the hair and all the other bits, just like normal. Zara asks, have you guys seen Sonic Prime yet? I have not. I don't even know what that is. Is that a show or a game? I'm not hooked in super close to Sonic. So if it's something new, I have probably not seen it. Oh, it's a Netflix show, I guess. Iconic says, just barely got Netflix back. I gotta watch Stranger Things 4 before anything. Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier, Iconic. When I eventually bite the bullet and get a Netflix account, I want to watch the last season of Stranger Things. Everybody I know is talking about it and trying not to spoil me. Alright, you're going to see me flipping my canvas back and forth to make sure. Not that way. Make sure we're not skewed too far in one direction with things like the eyes. On the topic of Sonic, Sarah said 7 out of 10 show. Would recommend if you love the Saturday AM Sonic. Oh, that's good to know. At least it's not terrible. Snake says, alright, I'm going to head out. This has been fun. Alright, Snake. I will catch you later. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out. Hope you have a good rest of your evening. Yeah, I think isn't Wazzy live right now? She's doing art. Or is that in an hour? Oh, not yet. Okay. I think she might be going live right when I'm finishing up. I really do try and time my streams so that they're not overlapping and people can tune in. Oh, hey, Ryura's here. What's up, Ryura? Wazzy's live in 15 minutes. I can never keep track of her schedule. I have to go to her server and look at the schedule to remember where it is she's streaming. Alright, I'm going to think of a good hair color. Maybe we can do dark green hair. The original version of this artwork that we're trying to redo wasn't in color, so I pretty much have free reign to do whatever I want with the color palette. So we can do like a dark green on the border for the hair and then go a little bit lighter on the actual hair itself. Oh, hey, Crusher's here. What's up, Crusher? Welcome to the drawing stream. And I see Crusher has redeemed drop a beat. We can drop some beats. We'll have to pick them back up, but we can definitely drop some. Here, let's do this. All I have to do is pause the BGM playlist. And it shouldn't need to adjust anything else. Crusher says, of course, you're a responsible beat dropper. Well, I definitely don't want to drop them on anybody else. That would be very hard to explain. Alright, let's see. Oh, I got an idea. What if we took something from practice and we put it into an actual structured pattern / routine? Let's try that. Alright. BGM goes back on. And declare out redeems. Let me do that real quick. I usually do it before stream, but I kind of started a little bit late today. I'm going to clear all the ones you folks have been redeeming. I got a hydrate and a stretch from Crusher. I'm finishing up my smoothie. Depending on where we're at time-wise, I'll probably switch to water. Alright, back to hair. What we'll do is we'll line in all the areas around where the hair is falling. And then, because it's a different color for all the regular details, we go in and do things like the hair clip over here. It's this thing on the side. And then the ear. This character's got a couple earrings. Be a little careful on the sort of jawline here. Alright, now we can move on to lining in the outfit. I know usually during this portion of the drawings, because it's basically just going through the motions of lining stuff in, and I don't usually have a lot of commentary on the different parts. I guess one thing I could talk about, because I do want to keep talking to you folks, in the next week or so, once I figure out the scheduling, I am going to be doing something kind of unique that I haven't done here on the channel, and I did want to sort of talk to you folks about it so you know it's coming. And maybe I mentioned it before, I don't know, I got a bad memory. But with the upcoming Lost Kingdom BGM pack, which will be coming out really soon. Just finished up the animation stuff for it last week. What I want to do for that one is do a release party. And I don't think I've mentioned this, or maybe I mentioned that I was thinking about it. But I do want to do that. It's going to be on the weekend. I got to figure out when yet. But basically, unlike all of the other music projects that we've had come out, because I worked with Wazi on this one, it was a collaborative effort. On the release party stream, what we're going to do is watch the video that she made in real time. It'll be the first time it's being debuted anywhere before it goes up on YouTube and all that. And basically watch the whole thing, and it's about an hour and 10 minutes. It's long. It's a lot of animation. But we would be watching it with both Wazi and myself to talk about in between the different scenes and whatnot, behind the scenes stuff that you folks don't normally get to hear about for these projects, both from a music perspective and an animation perspective. And I think that would be fun because you get to hear kind of Wazi's creative process when it came to designing all the different scenes and whatnot. And I can talk a little bit about things from the musical perspective, which probably aren't going to be as interesting. But because this project is more complicated than the other ones I've done, there is more to talk about. And I'm hoping we can schedule at a time when some of our other Toxicure affiliated friends are around, because this is a bit of a preview, bit of information for you folks. But characters in the animations that Wazi did are based on some of our friends in the Toxicure crew. So, for example, there's a character based on Matt. There's a character based on Wazi. There's a character based on Bits. There's a character based on Ramen. And there's a character based on Whups and Froggy. And so I'd like to be able to schedule the launch party on the days where those folks are around so they can see their characters. And they don't know that. They know I'm working on something and have seen some sort of preliminary things that I showed them, but they don't know it's for that project. So make sure you guys don't spoil it. And so I got to start talking to everybody and figure out if there's a good common day where we can get everyone on. But I think it'll be fun. It's a lot of work, but it was a really fun project to work on. And so I'm shooting for not this weekend, but the weekend after, because I'm going to be out of town the weekend after that. So we'll see. There'll be something up on the stream schedule to show you folks when the launch party for Lost Kingdom is. I just finished editing and rendering out the master video today. So now I got to get all of the track stuff loaded for streaming platforms. Riro says, bye, Rock. I'm going to watch Wazi stream. All right, Riro. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out. To Wazi, I said hello. Watch out for ghosts. Ghosts on stream. Meanwhile, we'll keep chipping away at getting all the details inked here. I'll make sure I save here. But anyway, yeah, that was a real quick kind of teaser for something I'm planning in the next week or so. Just have to figure out when yet. And then once we do the actual launch party for the stream, after that, the video will go live on YouTube. So it's not only going to be shown on stream. That would be a huge waste of everybody's effort. So if people aren't able to make the launch party stream, then that's cool. You'll be able to see the full video on YouTube, and you can watch it whenever you want. Saralad says, yo, Raku ASMR. What do you mean, Saralad? Are you talking about the video itself? The video is just instrumentals. And unlike some of the other things that we've done on stream as part of like the jam streams and whatnot, the next BGM pack doesn't have any beatboxing on it. It is all instruments and arranged stuff. using the loop station and my synthesizer Kun. And so it doesn't have beatbox sounds. It's the first project I've ever done that was all instruments. And so that was a big challenge, is learning how to not compose, because I didn't write anything, but learning how to record melodies and rhythms and whatnot, just like we do with beatboxing stuff, but using an actual instrument instead of my face, my mouth. And so that's why I said it was an interesting challenge to work on for Lost Kingdom. So it's going to be different. Very different in kind of style and tone compared to everything else I've done. But it was a fun experiment, and hope everyone enjoys it. And then once that project is out, it'll go into the rotation with all the other BGM tracks like we're listening to here. As far as like actual ASMR stuff, I don't know if I have a good voice for ASMR, because I'm told my voice is really chill, but if I was whispering, I don't know if it would be as effective. You want ASMR, go talk to Froggy. Crusher says whisper for us and we'll see. I don't have an ASMR mic, so maybe if I get really close. Here, let's do this. I'll pause the music. So if I get really close to the mic and just whisper super softly, is this comforting for your ears? Or does it just sound creepy and weird? I can't even tell if this is picking up because it's very soft. Crutcher says that's pretty nice in my opinion. At least I could not do that for like an hour, man. I could not keep my voice that low for that long. That and resisting the urge to make a sudden loud noise to scare the bejesus out of people would be probably a lot more restraint than I'm capable of demonstrating. You folks have no idea how hard it was to resist the urge to scream loudly on the Discord call with Wazzy and Mortuary Assistant yesterday. But she was freaking out so much as it was, I didn't really want to give her a heart attack. But from what we were discussing on the next one, which, again, from what we were talking about yesterday, I think is going to be next Monday. I think she's going to be streaming it from Matt's computer, so I'll be able to hear and see everything in real time. So I won't have the luxury of being able to listen to her react to spoopy stuff. I'll see it in real time. So you never know. I told her she should just make that like a bi-weekly thing on her channel until she beats it and gets all the endings. So you never know. Like I said, if you folks like the content that Wazzy does, or anybody does, make sure you let your feedback be heard. Crusher says, I saw the clip of the Shadow Man. I think it was the bathroom scene with the ghost lady. I think that might have been the one that scared her the most. Hard to say. There were a lot of moments. I think that VOD is up, and I don't know if that's going to go on the second Talk Secure channel. But it was a fun playthrough. There's definitely an escalation point in Mortuary Assistant. I could see why so many streamers played it. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's keep moving on to the arms. I need to start thinking about color palettes. I'd like to at least get through color assignment on today's stream for this one. What I might do, in fact, I've got an idea on how to make this work off stream. I think what I might do is devote some free time off stream to finishing a bunch of these designs from the drawing streams, these concepts, because a lot of them have been colored and not shaded. Some of them have been sketched. There's a lot. I know I've done a lot of these, and I'm pretty bad at finishing stuff. But I might do a work session and then just knock out a bunch at once, so that way when the Discord is eventually ready, I can have the stuff in there, and people can go and see the finished product from all these streams. Because I assume it's got to be a little frustrating for people to tune in and see me work on these and never see with the finished product. So I will look at doing that. Problem is, because I have a day job, it's difficult to find time to sit down and draw, which is why I do it on stream, because it gives me an opportunity to actually get stuff done. Alright, we'll keep working our way down the arms. So in other content related news, it's kind of early now, so it might not mean much, but I will be taking some time off in the spring from streaming towards the later part of March. I could talk a little bit more about that when it gets closer. I don't want anyone to worry. It's not because of serious reasons. But I've been planning some things to put onto YouTube for when that happens. I see Iconic has redeemed a stretch. Oh, my shoulders. Because I'd like for people to still have content while I'm not streaming. And so I haven't decided, and this is why I'm mentioning it now, because I would like some feedback from all of you folks. I haven't decided if it's going to be one-offs on YouTube or like a let's play, like a start to finish let's play on YouTube. So I guess the question would be, if you folks had a choice about content to consume on YouTube from me, would you like a long play from start to finish? Because we're looking at like 2.5 weeks of content when I won't be streaming. Or would you like one-offs? And this is something just to think about. You don't have to answer now, because I'll probably bring it up again when it gets a little bit closer. But the options could be full let's play of something that we haven't seen on the channel. It could be one-offs. It could be like fighting games. It kind of just depends. Iconic says, what would be easier for you? It doesn't really matter. I have to record something no matter what. And so if it's, a playthrough of a game start to finish, I just have to, allocate time to do that. And if I do that earlier than later, that's probably better, because I'm going to run out of time or forget about it. Sarlat says something you'll enjoy. Any games in your backlog? Man, my backlog is ridiculously huge. There are a lot of games that I haven't gotten to yet, and I don't know where we're gonna be at as far as what we're playing on stream. So I could look and see if I can beat a game in 2 weeks worth of sessions. Then I might think about that. It's not a bad idea. What I'm thinking is maybe like 3 uploads a week on YouTube that I can schedule in advance, and then they would go live there. But I also don't want to start something and then never finish it. So I don't know. Just food for thought. So again, you folks don't need to give me an answer now, obviously, but something that maybe we will talk about when it gets closer to March. Because it also depends on what I'm actively playing at the same time on stream. In theory, it could also be non-gaming content too. Like, it could be drawing challenges, even though they'd be recorded, and so there'd be no interactive element, but I could record myself attempting drawing challenges. I could potentially do like beatbox stuff too. I want to kind of not really do like tutorial stuff because that's not really my thing, and there are much better people on YouTube specifically doing beatbox tutorials. I do want to do daily beats at some point. I don't know when I'm going to do that, but outside of like March, hiatus month, essentially, I would like to do daily beats again. If I'm really ambitious, maybe February, but in likelihood, a lot of January is probably going to be taken up by trying to record stuff for later. Garcher says, I recommend West of Loathing and Shadows Over Loathing. I have heard good things about those games. It'll give me flashbacks of my time playing the original Kingdom of Loathing in Earth School for far too many hours. I should look at that game. That'd be a difficult one to stream because not a lot happens, but it's such a fascinating setup for like a browser-based game. It's nuts. Has anybody here ever played the original Kingdom of Loathing? Would have been a long time ago, like late 2000s, mid to late 2000s, I think. But it's where the whole aesthetic and setup for West and Shadows Over Loathing, it all came from that original game, original browser-based game. Alright, let's work our way down to the lower part of the like half dress. Is that what you call that? You think about it logically, for offline content, I could do something like DMC5 because I can actually record that now with my setup. I just can't stream it until I get the new graphics card installed. But I think it'd be more fun to experience Devil May Cry 5 with all of you folks. Oh, I see. Crusher's currently playing West of Loathing right now. You have to let me know what your thoughts are on the game once you finish it, Crusher. Again, I've heard good things. Knowing the devs and what they created with the original game, I've definitely heard those are solid titles. Which is crazy to me. If you talk about old internet properties that have existed for a long time and are still around today, a good parallel would be Dwarf Fortress, which I'm going to be picking up at some point. I don't know when I'm going to look at it on stream. But Dwarf Fortress has been around almost as long as the original Kingdom of Loathing. Maybe a little bit longer. And the fact that we're still talking about it, having just come out a couple weeks ago, is bananas to me. Because I played quite a bit of the original Dwarf Fortress back when it was a free, like, ASCII symbol game instead of something with graphics. That's the internet for you. Another game from a little bit later, but still way back in the internet days. Another game I'd like to look at on stream. Preferably with someone who's never seen it before, because getting someone's candid, fresh reaction is one of the most entertaining things ever. And that's a game called Frog Fractions. And I think I've mentioned it before. I would really like to play through Frog Fractions on stream with someone who's never played it before. If you folks who've been on the internet for a bit have ever seen Frog Fractions and know what I'm talking about, then you could probably understand why that's good content. If you haven't, and you have no idea what I'm talking about, then don't worry about it. Frog Fractions is an experience. Sarlad says, yo, Frog Fractions, maybe with Wazzy. She's the person I would want the most to experience that firsthand. And I told that to her, too, a long time ago when we first started talking about content. I said, hey, we should stream Frog Fractions sometimes. And she got really mad at me because she doesn't like math. I said, it doesn't matter. It's not really that math-based because, again, if you know, you know. But I'm gonna try and work that angle at some point. Again, it sounds like Sourlad has seen Frog Fractions before. If you don't know what it is, don't look it up. Just know that it is an experience. And very educational, too. I'm going to move up the foot here a little bit. On the topic of, I think, Frog Fractions, I'm assuming, Silat said, it's been a few years, but I still remember bits of the game. It's like I said, it's an experience. I played that game, I want to say in the early 2010s. I don't remember exactly when it came out, but a friend of mine just said, hey, there's this indie game out there, and it was free. I think it still is. You pay for the DLC, which I haven't played through that at all, but my friend said, hey, there's this indie game called Frog Fractions. You should play it. It's really interesting. And I said, I don't like math. Like I said, it doesn't matter. It was a religious experience, to say the least. All right, we're almost done with the line art. So now we just need to do this arm. And then we'll do the cleanup. And see where that puts us time-wise. Cleanup shouldn't take too long. But we'll definitely want to make sure we haven't gotten any stray lines and whatnot before we do color assignment. I think we're more or less in line on the eyes here. I'm going to move this up just a little. It's a little better. Okay, let's see how that looks. That should be fine. It's a little bit tricky when working with vector just because I have to be careful when I erase stuff since it's redrawing it using math. Speaking of math, but now let's sweep through and do cleanup on all the line art. And then we'll see where we're looking at time-wise. Thankfully, the hair patterns on this one are relatively simple. Starlat says, I like how the head looks. Oh, thank you. Once I get all of the line art cleaned up, I'll see if there's anything I want to adjust on it. But if you look at, we can compare it to the original now that we have line art. It's a little bit easier to see. Whoop, wrong one. If we compare the original on the off-color scan, the hair is pretty much the same. I changed sort of the patterning on the locks, like right around here. Didn't really do much with that. Still kind of long shoulder length hair, but the outfit, I think the outfit was the biggest thing that needed to be sort of simplified in places and kind of updated in others. So this gives us a better point of reference. Let me zoom out here. You can kind of compare and contrast. Another thing I mentioned in the last session when we did the rough sketch, one of the biggest problems with the original is the proportions. The model's legs are way too long. Her legs are like twice as long as her body, disproportionately long legs. Something I had a real issue with in a lot of these older drawings. So we definitely kind of condensed down the proportions a little bit and made that change. And then here we can mark different sections like that. The outfit, again, supposed to be armor. We're talking about like a futuristic type of protective armor, but the original is kind of all over the place. And we spent time ripping character designs, and I'm not immune to the pitfalls of character design either. I think part of the problem with the way this original one looks like, if we're talking about armor, you essentially have like a breastplate type of thing that cuts off right here, which is not really functional for armor. We talked about earlier on in the stream. Someone who's fighting you with any sort of weapon is going to aim for the unprotected part right here. Not really practical in combat. But even outside of that, under the breastplate was sort of like a cut-off bodysuit type garment. That's what you see here. Which would be fine normally, but as part of an armor design, doesn't really make much sense. And then you have the shoulder and arm guards here, which are connected by, look like straps here. Like an amulet type thing in the middle, which also looks like it's connected to a collar piece here, but it's hard to tell because it looks more like a textured thing. Either way, the upper body part is kind of a mess. But it seemed like a good idea at the time, which is going to be the title of this drawing. Looking at the lower part in comparison, the midsection guard here is way too busy. It has too many lines and layers, and it's hard to tell what it's even supposed to be. And so we took that, simplified it a lot more so that it has kind of a similar set of converging lines. That's the other problem. None of this stuff really flows. And so we fixed that, made this part more simple. And then the lower body had this sort of dress with straps around it, which don't really make any sense. How would you even walk? Like maybe it was inspired by Iori from King of Fighters, but not very practical again. So we completely threw out the idea for the dress, and instead we made it like a half dress that would be protected with plates of armor, and then actually being able to see lower leg armor underneath, which is also a change. This character, from what we can tell, doesn't have any armor on her lower legs. This is the bare skin here with these sort of boots. We're talking about armor, that wouldn't be really practical either. This original design has too many weak points. On the upper torso, or if someone was fighting this character, they would go straight for the shins, which are not armored. Not terribly practical. And then we simplified the design on the arms too. Both the shoulder guard, upper arm bicep guard, and then the forearm guards. Made it a little bit more simple. And so the general theme was taking the original design, making it a little more practical and not quite as confusing looking. So hopefully that shows through in the updated one. But you'll see. I want to do this again in the future, probably with like a male model to switch things up. But a lot of these old designs are a little bit out there. A good majority of it was just taking ideas, throwing them at the wall, and seeing what stuck. And my ego is not so large that I'm above showing this stuff on stream so that we can all look at it and make constructive criticisms or just laugh at really bad designs. There's some ones that are way worse than the one I picked here. Iconic asks, Raku, you still doing the fighting game stuff before or after a break? Yes. The short answer, Iconic, is yes. And I still plan on doing fighting game month, but it definitely isn't going to be the month where I'm taking off, because I want to be able to do stuff on stream, especially things like matches and whatnot. I thought about that too, maybe recording a bunch of fighting game stuff, but I'd rather have that all dedicated in a single month. It would be more fun to do it that way, I think. But yes, fighting game month will happen eventually. It's another thing I need to think about. I need to write a list of all the games I want to cover in a fighting game month, and then I'll have to figure out how much of it's going to be offline and how much is going to be online. Because the offline stuff would be like, hey, here's an overview of the game, here's how it works. And then the online stuff would be more like interactive, you know, especially if people own the game on PC and want to jump in for matches and stuff, fight clubs and whatnot. That's what the online stuff would be. Sarlat asks, thoughts on Mortal Kombat? I was really out of the loop on Mortal Kombat for a long time. I played 9 a bit, liked it, but didn't play it competitively. I played X, or the 10th one, a lot more, and did play that one competitively for a bit. And then I played 11 a decent amount too. So the recent 3 Mortal Kombats I enjoyed immensely. I liked the kind of rebooted world. I liked the way that all the fighting game mechanics worked. They were really solid in general. I really liked the guest characters in X. I played a lot of Alien and Predator. That's why I was mentioning before when we were talking about what NetherRealm's working on. I'm really curious to see what their next project is. I never really got into Injustice, not being a huge DC fan. But if they made a new one, I'd look at how mechanically they design it and, you know, I might get into it. I don't know. Character designs didn't really wow me either. They were fine. Sarlat says 1 to 6 original timeline, 7 to 11 new timeline. I don't know. There was a reset in the lore. The most recent reset was, I believe, 9 on. It was either 9 on or X on. I don't remember. Okay, reboot was 9. Funny enough, MK versus DC is canon considered to be MK8. I don't really talk about MK versus DC. I remember that game. That game was not that well received and was generally considered not really a high point in the series. A lot of those older games were pretty kind of meh to me, so I never really got into them. But then when they redid everything with 9, I really liked the way they kind of styled everything. And then it's been pretty solid since then. Iconic says post MK11 seems to be starting another reboot of sorts. Yeah, the way the story resolved, I guess we'll just have to see. Wouldn't surprise me if they do the multiverse thing, since everyone's doing the multiverse thing now. Sarlat said, not sure how MK will do after the events of 11 plus DLC. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see what they do. I would be very surprised if we see another Mortal Kombat title before another Injustice, but you never know. Just because Injustice 2 came out, what, like 8 years ago or something? Maybe more? Iconic says, I love if we somehow continue from the Shang Tsung bad ending. Or they just pick a random timeline to make canon. Yeah, it's a fighting game. You know, you can literally do anything. Like if you screw up your canon timeline so bad you have to reboot it from the beginning, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what they did with Soul Calibur 6, and I think that was a really good idea. If they tried to continue the Soul Calibur 5 storyline, I don't know if I would have played 6. Sarlat said, I think they do a cycle of MK Injustice and would make an Injustice after MK11. There wasn't an Injustice between X and 11, though, I don't think. Unless that's when 2 came out. I don't know. Again, I don't keep super close tabs on what NetherRealm does. So you could be right. Have to look at the list. I don't know how the DC licensing works either, because they're, like Iconic is saying, they're kind of off on their own. But it's not like we're going to get a Marvel versus game anytime soon. That may never happen again. Thanks a lot, Infinite. You've salted the earth for Marvel vs. Capcom versus games. But even if we never get another Marvel vs. Capcom game on the versus collab side, I mentioned this before when we talked about fighting games, but I would really like to see Capcom versus SNK 3. I played so much of Capcom versus SNK 2 back in the day. It's one of my favorite fighting games. One can dream. I'm trying to think if there were any other big properties that you could throw into a versus type fighting game specifically. It doesn't need to be an established property. You do something like Atlas versus Squaresoft. Licensing for that would be a nightmare because Squaresoft apparently doesn't know how to manage their brands. But can you imagine if, obstacles aside, they did Squaresoft versus Atlas? Iconic says new MVC would be great, especially if you focus on newish characters like Miles Spider-Man and Miss Marvel, Falcon, Cap. Yeah, I think Disney's probably gun shy on the Marvel vs. Capcom collabs after Infinite. That's just my thought. And that's coming from a person who's really excited for Infinite because it had a Monster Hunter character in it. And I played it for maybe a few weeks, and it really kind of fell flat and didn't grab me. I was kind of disappointed by the fact that even though the core mechanics of the game were decent, the cast was not super strong. And I think that's what turned a lot of people off to Infinite. Watching Maximilian's coverage of it, there's a lot in there that's really well designed from a fighting game perspective, but it's not hype. After Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, like what drew people was like just the hypeness of the matches and the cast. And they didn't really do that for Infinite, and that's kind of what killed the game. The Capcom support for it was really weird too. It was just kind of abandoned. And if that's the way the MVC series goes out, it's pretty disappointing. Iconic says, Final Ultron Sigma went so hard for such a mediocre game. Almost as if it was more than the game deserved when you think about it. Which is, again, pretty sad. They literally could have just gone back and said, who wasn't in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 from MVC 2 and pulled like a quarter of the roster into a new game, and then just did a slightly upgraded engine and graphics overhaul from 3. The other problem was that the characters themselves in the engine in Infinite did not look very good. Like, they just didn't really animate as well. It was semi-realistic and ended up being kind of like Uncanny Valley-ish. Quite a bit on the execution side just wasn't there for MVCI, and I think that's why it failed. Starlet says old Marvel Universe versus modern Marvel Universe. There's so much you could do as far as universe-wise, but I also think that Disney was pushing Capcom to incorporate things that were in line with the MVCU, or MCU rather, the cinematic universe of movies that were going on at the time, which if they did that after like Infinity Wars and Endgame came out, there would be a lot more hype for it. But they were still establishing, I don't even think Black Panther had come out when they originally released MVCI. I think it came out after. And so a lot of the MCU stuff that was really cool later hadn't really happened yet. Iconic says, I need DMC Lady in an MVC game, especially after DMC 5. Yeah, that would be a good pull. I'm surprised there was never... Well, from DMC, it's just Dante and Virgil, right? Those are the only two characters from the franchise featured in fighting games. I feel like you'd see Nero before you saw Lady. Oh, and Trish. Trish was in Ultimate. That's right. No, what's her name? Gloria from 4? Was it Gloria? The one with the white hair? Who's... Actually, spoilers, I'm not going to go into. Oh, okay, well, I kind of just straight out mentioned it. That's fine. All I remember is the cutscenes with Gloria. I said, this is very not subtle. It's almost like I'm playing a Clover game. Sarlat says, Metal Gear versus who? If you're to do a fighting game, like a versus style crossover, probably like Metal Gear versus... It had to be something like futuristic. Something futuristic with a decent cast of characters. Maybe you do like Metal Gear versus... maybe like Bayonetta. You should just expand it and do like Konami versus Platinum. You could pull enough out of that, I think. It depends if you're talking like the characters or like the actual Metal Gears themselves, like the big monster things. That would be like Metal Gear versus Gundam. I feel like that would be potentially doable. No, but I'd rather see, Saralad, if you're going to bring in Gundam, I'd rather see Gundam versus Armored Core. You talk about Mobile Suit and similar scale, because the Armored Cores and the Nexts are on the same scale as Gundams, piloted by people. I know people would probably say Eva versus Gundams, but I think scale-wise, Evas are much bigger, and there's only like 6 of them. You did like Mobile Suit universe versus Armored Core universe. Even that, though that'd be super niche, I think it'd be really awesome. Iconic says, Gloria Twist doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, to be fair. Oh no, I think most people called it when that character showed up too, but I just remember that first scene and I was like, huh, is this going to set the tone for the rest of the game? Not so much, but it was still entertaining. All right. Now we're talking about video games. We could talk about video games forever, but I think I'm going to call the drawing itself here. And like I said, I may do a work session to finish off a bunch of these. And when I do that, next time we do an actual sit-down drawing stream, hopefully I'll have them done and I can run through them real quick and show everybody. And then they'll have a home on the Discord in the art section going forward. And I see Saralette has redeemed a hydrate stretch and a save reminder. I did save. Thankfully, I saved somewhat frequently today. Iconic says, biggest impact Gloria has is giving her an alt in NBC, otherwise she'd have nothing. That's probably true. I don't even remember her story significance, if anything. I think she was posing as like a member of the church or something, which is even funnier when you think about the character design. But let's see. Good question, Crusher. Are we raiding Wazi? Let me see who else is online. I think last time I was live, I did raid Wazi. Let me see if we can spread the love to someone who might have less people. Let me take a look. Let's see. Let's see. Wazi is currently arting. Lib is playing Roblox. We could raid someone I haven't seen in a while. I think he might have taken a break from streaming. Another VTuber named Takashi Sotodate. And they're playing Saga 2, which I don't know what that is. But we'll go ahead and raid Takashi and say what's up. So let me go ahead and switch to outro. The BGM's off. And do this before we actually do the raid. Loaded up. So we'll call that a drawing stream for today. Thanks to everybody who hung out and watched me get moderate progress done on a piece. We will be back on a Thursday, I believe, according to the schedule. We'll be picking up in Armored Core, and I believe Matt will be coming along again as co-pilot. And we'll see where we go. I think I have an interesting idea for how to handle Armored Core next time. So until then, hope everyone has a good evening. Oh, Crusher says also like this song. You're talking about the song in the outro, Crusher? I can send you some info about it later. yeah, have a good evening, everybody, and let's go raid Takashi.